And welcome to Life Sciences Today podcast. It's a pleasure to host Rony Angel. Rony is the Chief Marketing Officer of Centarix and their Center Longevity Clinic. Rony, tell me a bit about yourself.
Gladly. First of all, thank you for having me, Danny. Just to mention, Danny, we met at the Aging IL conference, and I want you to know that since I met you, you're a very intriguing individual, and I'm happy to be here. Every time I've met you and every time we've talked, it's been really interesting. So thanks for having me. About myself, basically, I'm Israeli born, grew up in Toronto, Canada, lived about 10 years in Manhattan. I've been working in marketing and I guess everything around marketing for most of my life. Most recently, for the last about 15 years, I've been in Israel, helping many companies here who are technologically sound, but are lacking in the marketing department. Usually it's companies that have recently raised money, they have a product, they've raised the money and they need to go to market. And usually that's where I come in. I've advised over 40 companies in Israel, worked closely with over 40 companies in Israel in helping them go to market. Yeah.
So tell me about this longevity thing. It seems to be really big right now. And Centarix is pioneering longevity. And I the grand tour in Jerusalem a few months ago after the Aging IO conference. And I just would love to hear more about what longevity means.
That's a good question. So it depends who you ask. Still, I mean, there's a lot of debate about about the terms and about the topic in general. I think in general, when we talk about longevity, it probably used to mean just extending life and trying to get a few more years out of somebody's lifespan and extending lifespan. And I think most recently there's been a shift to where it means actually extending health span. In other words, it's not enough just to add another 10 miserable years to somebody's life. It's like, how do we make those years actually worth saving in the first place? And I think that's probably a good way to wrap it up for today. Like, as far as where it is today is, just about, it's about extending health spans as far as we can. There's a lot of debate about the subject in regards to whether it's aging should be classified as a disease or not. That's another topic that's very hot right now, is how do we look at it? Do we consider it a disease? It's an amazing topic because really it's sort of something that we've all lived with. Nobody even thought of. Aging was always part of life. As much as people were miserable about it in one way or another, and some took it better than others, I don't think anybody ever saw it as something that could be fixed or maybe even should be fixed. And I think that's one of the major shifts we're seeing today, is that people are recognizing aging, if not technically as a disease, they're giving it that sort of, they're putting it in that sort of a category of something that can be fixed, can be mitigated, and in some cases maybe even reversed.
Yeah, so Centarix is probably the only biotech I know that was actually bootstrapped. So tell me how that happened.
I don't know if that's exactly correct. I mean, we do have funding. We have a private funder, a private investor that's from Europe. We started out about 7 years ago, but I think we're the pretty sure. Like I've never really checked this officially, but as far as I know, and I know a lot of this market, is we are the first biotech company to ever be established in the aging, to be focused only on aging and on cellular rejuvenation and basically in reversing aging or treating aging. And we did that about in 2017 when we opened and we started the company. Literally, this whole topic of longevity, the whole topic of cellular rejuvenation was it was science fiction, and it was a very, very the smallest niche of people and odd people here and there speaking about it. It was not a topic that you could even talk to with most people. They didn't know what you were talking about, as opposed to today, where it's becoming much more prevalent and much more commonplace. But we are the first biotech company to be focused specifically on treating aging. Yeah.
So tell me what you can tell me, because I know some of it's still under wraps, but I know you're working on some really crazy, exciting stuff in the
Yeah.
pipeline. So tell me what you have in the pipeline.
Gladly, I'll tell you just a little bit about our department. So we were basically broken up into, I guess, four departments, and we have one department is cellular rejuvenation, which is really exciting, and I'll get back to that one and I'll explain a little bit what we're doing there. But generally, for those who don't know, cellular rejuvenation just is the idea that you can, if we look at aging, we know that it starts at the molecular level and then it kind of cascades outwards towards the functional. And what we're trying to do with our cellular rejuvenation is trying to reverse the damage that's being done to the cells or the DNA or the epigenetics more specifically over time, and trying to reverse that and bring it back to an earlier state. It's almost like a cellular time machine, if you like. Our second department is our delivery systems, because once we do find a solution, we need a way to get it into the cells of a human organism or a living organism. And for this, we need a delivery system. And then we have a third department, which is diagnostics. So one of the things that is lacking today and was lacking when we opened the company was a really solid or scientific way to measure biological age in the first place. And today there's a few candidates for this, and most of them are basically one biomarker. So either people are taking epigenetics, the epigenetic clocks, or they're taking the telomere lengths or grip strength, or they're picking a biomarker, cardio, and saying, okay, that'll be the way we measure biological age. At Centarix, we have a whole different approach. We don't believe that the biological age should be a singular number, such as chronological age. And I think that's the mistake that everybody else is trying to make, is they're trying to mimic the chronological age by coming up with a singular number. And it's actually not very helpful, because it doesn't really serve a great purpose. If I could tell somebody who's 50, if I told somebody who's 50, listen, your biological age is 60, I mean, that's a bummer, but it won't help them much in life, and it doesn't give them any call to action there. As opposed to what we believe the right way to go about it is to create a biological age profile. And in order to do that, what we did is we conducted a study with Hadassah Mount Scopus, a Helsinki study. It's in its third year, where we brought in healthy candidates between the ages of 20 and 80. And we measured them on four levels. We measured them on the molecular level, on a blood serum level, on a imaging level, and then on a functional level. And functional, we did like muscle strength, balance, range of motion. We even did cognitive on the functional. We literally did a whole array of functional testing in order to create biological clocks for every biomarker, or for the main biomarkers. And the way we look at it is, in order to really look at somebody's biological age, it's not enough to have a single biomarker. It's the keyhole effect. You're looking through a keyhole. And we believe that Noam Moz, our CTO, actually has a really good analogy for this. And what he says is that if you were trying to if you had a puzzle of somebody famous that you needed to recognize, and if you only had one piece of the puzzle, it probably would not be enough to recognize who that is. On the other hand, you wouldn't need every piece of the puzzle to recognize who it is. So if you had the right amount of pieces spread in the right way, you'd be able to recognize. And that's the way he looks at what we're doing as far as diagnostics of biological age, is that what we want to do is we want to create an array or a mosaic or profile of the biological age in order to get a complete picture of that person. And the reason for that is we see that some people have certain biomarkers that are they're behind their years, and some are advanced in their years. In other words, we can have a 50-year-old guy who has, for instance, the cardio of a 25-year-old or a 30-year-old, and he could have the cognitive ability of a 75-year-old. He could have the muscle strength of a 30-year-old, and he could have the range of motion of a 65-year-old. So to try to break it down to one number is first of all wrong. It seems intuitive on its face, but it's actually counterproductive, and it doesn't really give us a picture of what we want, and that is to see really where's this person's health overall. So we did this study for 3 years, and now today we're able to actually create biological profiles for people that are very comprehensive. They use over 100 biomarkers, and we had to create algorithms for all of this and systems and so on. And it was a big undertaking. But today, what that gives us is it gives us a tool to measure biological age in a way so that we know, and we needed this for our experiments. In order to understand aging, we first had to be able to measure it. There's the famous Peter Dunker quote, you can't manage what you can't measure. And
Right.
so in order to actually do this, we had to actually create a ruler to begin with, in order so we know what we're doing in the cellular rejuvenation and other projects that we're doing. Interestingly enough, this led us actually to our fourth division, which is Centa, which is our clinic. And once we have,
That's your go-to market, right?
it's one of them. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. In the meantime, yes. So the way to look at Centarix is, on the one hand, Centarix in the cellular rejuvenation, what we're doing is we're trying to fix aging from a molecular level. So from the micro to the macro, we want to change the molecular in order to change the functional. Right? We're going from the molecular to the functional, and what we're doing with Centa today is we're doing the opposite, and it is possible, because we know this through research, that the functional, just like the molecular affects the functional also affects the molecular. It's a two-way street. And so you can actually rejuvenate cells through the functional improvement of biomarkers. And so what we're doing today with Centa is we're bringing people in, and we're actually doing the diagnostics, creating a profile for them, and then creating programs for them in order to improve their biomarkers in an attempt to reverse the aging on a molecular level. So the way we look at it is Centarix, the cellular rejuvenation of Centarix is sort of like the molecular to the functional, so the micro to the macro. And if we look at Centa, the clinic, we're coming at it from the other direction. We're going from the macro to the micro. In other words, from the functional to the molecular.
Well,
Yeah.
so by improving diet and exercise and I guess things like that and living well, then what you're saying, we can actually change the molecular formation inside our body. That's what you're saying.
Absolutely. It's not exterior. It's not a one-way street. We can actually improve cell function. We can lengthen telomeres. We can improve epigenetics, slow down the epigenetic clock. There's a lot of it's not something you're seeing. When you see somebody just building muscle, it's not just on a surface level. It's not on a aesthetic level. Like, they're actually affecting their molecular. They're actually slowing down aging on a molecular level. Absolutely, and in some cases reversing it.
Well,
Yeah.
so the focus of the podcast is very much on business side, and I I usually ask at this stage, well, how do you create value for your customers? It's like almost a ridiculously stupid question right now. Who doesn't want to live a long, healthy life? So, I mean, that's the value you create. So I'll move on to the next question, which is, how do you capture value? How do you make money for the company?
So if we look at cellular rejuvenation, that's going to be like, I guess that's our that's second generation solution. If we've had great success in that, and today we just we're applying for patents for some advancements we've made that are really groundbreaking. We were able to reverse the biological age of skin cells ex vitro, in other words, outside of just in cellular experiments. We were able to reverse them between 10 and 20 years, the epigenetic clocks. which has never been done before. Without the key to this is we were able to do it without losing the identity of the cell. So up until now, there was like a great advancement, and people were able to reverse it all the way back into basically into an embryonic cell. But an embryonic cell doesn't help us; it doesn't have any identity. So we were able to actually reverse age and keep its identity, which is something that's never been done. So if we continue on this path and we're able to accomplish this feat, um, you know, that I don't even need to sell that. I'll have the easiest job in the world as a CMO of that company. Basically, I can tell
That's
you.
right. That's
Yeah,
right.
I'm not,
Sure.
just basically I'm going to have to choose who I'm selling to. Not really.
The women of the world will be lined up, and the
And
cosmetic
men
and men
men
as
are just,
well. Yeah, of course. I mean,
by the
people will
way,
be lined up. Cosmetics companies will be lined up.
not even that. It's a health issue. Like one of the things we're aiming for here, it's really not an aesthetic issue. It's definitely a health issue. Like, um, you if you want to look at it this way, like there is a drop off in functionality. If we look across the board and all of functionality between the time somebody is 23 at their peak to the time they get to their 60s, there's almost a 50% drop off in muscle strength, balance, and all the functional abilities, cognitive, grip strength. Um, so our job, and then what we see with that is also that it opens up the door to many pathologies. That some of the worst pathologies come to us at the end of life because we are not able, because of our aging. Basically, if it wasn't for the aging, most of the diseases we deal with today wouldn't be as prevalent and they wouldn't be as devastating. So if we talk about dementia, if we talk about um, a, inflammation of the joints, if we talk about cardio disease, cardiovascular disease, if we talk about cancer, all those things, it's because when we age, those gates get opened up, and we become very susceptible to those pathologies. Um, so we actually approach it more on a health issue than an aesthetic level. I know there's an aesthetic element that's always hanging in the air, especially when we talk to people. A lot of times, that seems to be an important thing. But our approach as a company is really just to approach it from a health level, and the aesthetics is a bonus. Like if you're going to look better, then great, we'll take it. But it's definitely not the main goal for Centarix.
Yeah, for sure. I
Yeah.
mean, I don't mind living a long life and being ugly and having a healthy life. Yeah, I don't mind being ugly if that happens. But I'm sure there are a lot of people that would pay great money for that combination of living well, living healthy, living long, and also looking terrific. Uh,
I think throughout history, health and beauty have always kind of gone hand in hand, and all the things that we usually attribute to beauty are sort of markers of good health. And there's a good reason for that, is because they're there to tell a mate whether or not they should mate with somebody or not by their health. Because so I think most of the things that we attribute to beauty are really there's an underlying health narrative to it.
for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. So, I mean, I guess this is an amazing journey for you and the company, and for a lot of people, billions of people who are waiting for your products. And do you have
If
any,
we talk,
do you
yeah,
have anything to add for our listeners, Ronnie?
yeah, absolutely. You asked me about go to market, so that's when we talk about the cellular rejuvenation. But if we talk about Centa, what we're offering at the clinic today, there's there's a lot of if we're just talking about the marketing side of it and the sales side of it, we don't market very hard. We go we're sort of stealthy about it, and we're not trying to be in people's faces because we don't want to attract the wrong kind of people. At this point, it's an expensive service, and there's no point getting people excited who might not be able to afford it. So that's one issue. Um, but what we've seen is very interesting. I'll say we've been sort of ramping up slowly for the last 6 months as far as bringing people to the clinic. And what we've seen is really interesting. Is there's a huge demand. There's a growing awareness, but there's a lot of confusion in the market, and there's a lot of misinformation in the market. Like every trend that when it's blowing up, there's a lot of hot air in there.
Right.
And I guess it's like sort of like if you want to go back to the bubble back in 2000, right? Like where there were like real companies in there. There was real technology. There was real value. But with every one of those, there was like 10 companies who were like just absolutely just copycatting and trying and pretending. And it's the same thing with this. I mean, we see a lot of disinformation out there. We see a lot of gimmicks, a lot of nonsense, a lot of people trying just to put the tag of longevity on things that aren't really longevity, aren't really, so what we're seeing is a lot of demand, but we're also seeing a lot of noise. And what we're trying to do, and we're doing a pretty good job of it, is trying to get across who we are, what we offer as far as a service. And I can tell you a couple of things that I was surprised. Is it okay if I ramble on for like another minute?
Yeah, sure. You have another minute or two to ramble on.
All right, thanks. So a couple of things that were really interesting that we found is we initially thought that this was going to be more of an issue of a socioeconomic. In other words, like as long as somebody is over a socioeconomic range, that they should be candidates for us. And what we've seen over the last while is that that's not the first consideration. The most important consideration is awareness and willingness to take action on your health. And because we've met people who are very well off, and they understand everything that we're offering and they get it, but they haven't made the decision in their lives that they're willing to be proactive when it comes to their health. They're playing the waiting game, hoping for some miracle to come, that magic wand, right, somebody will wave over them.
You'll drink something and it'll happen, and you'll get.
But conversely, we've seen people with not so high socioeconomic positions who are just absolutely obsessed with doing better in their health. They see the importance of it. They see the significance of it. They're already investing, and they want tools and they want the data. And those people, it doesn't even matter. They don't need to be that high up on the ladder. They're willing to put their money down and be a part and do what we're doing. So I think what surprised me is that sort of like the health mentality of the person who's with us seems to be the biggest factor. And then secondary is like the socioeconomic part of it. Yeah.
Well, that sort of actually makes total sense. And at this point, I would say, I know you guys are doing amazing things. Just the idea of being able to reverse skin age by 30, 40 years is just, it seems like science fiction. And, Senta, I know the clinic in Jerusalem is doing great things for people, all kinds of people, all the way from triathletes to regular people. And what I can wish for our listeners, and of course for Centarix and Senta, the clinic, is for us to all move more, eat better, and live a happy life.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Rony, thank you so much.
Thank you too, Danny.